And then finally, I landed on this phrase that defines what I do now, which is I design relationship between people and organizations that drive human positive impact.
I love that.
And that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Matthew Smith, how you doing, my friend?
I'm glad to be here, dude. Yeah, life is wild, and here we are in the middle of pandemic, or maybe we're at the beginning still. I don't know, man. But I'm doing really well. I mean, there's so much to be grateful for. So glad to be here, though.
That's awesome, man. I've been I noticed some of your tweets where you post about gratefulness, and I've been working on being more proactive about being grateful for things and stuff. And lately, I've been thinking about my dad a lot and just expressing gratitude for having a really loving, supportive dad. He actually passed away a few months ago.
Oh man,
yeah.
wow.
But it was a period of time where he had ALS, and so it was a couple of years where he was kind of declining. So we saw it coming and got to say our goodbyes and stuff. This is a real heavy opening to a podcast.
Well, I hear that, but I'm like, fuck yeah, let's dive in, man. This shit, I've been thinking so much about my own mortality over the last couple of years. You and I've talked about it, but I'm sober, a little over 4.5 years now. And something about that process really popped that into view. And then more recently, maybe it's the pandemic, but my folks are getting older, and it's just brought to my mind the reality that that I am probably halfway through my life, but I could be minutes away, from the end.
Yeah.
And I've been reading a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh and thinking about that there is no beginning to life, there is no end to life, there's only change. And this idea that our matter doesn't go away, it just becomes something else.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm thinking about what you said about your dad. I mean, that's really unique, man. The relationship you had with him, and then to lose him, it sounds like, I'm going to guess, you're in your late 30s, early 40s, and to lose, a dad at that age, is earlier than some, and that's got to be hard. How did you and your family work through it?
It was a process from when we heard about the diagnosis to, we did some cool stuff together when my dad was still walking around, and we went to did a trip to Disney World and stuff like that with the whole family. And
that's fun.
Yeah, we really made some great memories and stuff. And then the very last day, I went out there to LA and was with him, and he was kind of in and out of consciousness at that time, and it had gotten pretty bad with his breathing and stuff like that. But we had this amazing last day where I was with my dad's wife, and my brother was there, and then we had some words with my dad, at the very end, and just really felt a sense of saying goodbye. And my dad, the thing I was so inspired by was how my dad was so full of life, and not any bitterness or resentment or anything like that to the very end. And the relationship he had with his wife is so magical. They were they're what I want to be, in terms of the level of happiness, love, and support, and playfulness, and just fun. And
wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So I feel, as I talked a little bit about it publicly and heard from some people, I'd hear from people that would say oh, my dad died 5 years ago and I'm still not over it. I think there's this really big difference between when you have a sense of closure and when you don't. I think it makes a huge difference. And so so I'm really grateful for that. And He's always just real loving and supportive. And I know that's not the case for everybody,
Yeah,
and
it's really unique.
yeah, and it's something that I think if you don't have, it, I think some people can chase their whole life like trying to fill, that void that they might have, and so
Yep.
yeah, I've been grateful for it. But yeah, I really appreciate like your Twitter. Like I was thinking about this morning, and I feel like it's one of the more like soulful Twitter pages in tech or in my circle. And
Thanks, man.
and I like that. Like it's a combination of email and stuff and design and being a dad and the stuff you talk about related to addiction recovery and stuff like that. And it's beautiful, man. It's cool. It's really cool to see.
Thanks, dude. It's just kind of the big picture of who I am, is there was a time when I kind of kept those things a little more separated. And I about a year and a half ago, I started really rethinking everything about work. What do I want this to be about? What do I want to really do? Why am I here? Maybe not even in a big cosmic sense, like some other being has determined a purpose for me, but more like, what kind of contribution do I want to leave for my family, for the world? And I worked with a guy named Will Gray who has his own process, but it's similar to like a Simon Sinek start with why type of thing. And we looked back across all the work and all the things that I had done over the last more or less 20 years. And, it was really interesting to see these different times when I was really frustrated, and times when I was really excited, and times when I was really engaged, and times when I was really stressed, and times when I was really relaxed. And what were the markers, like what defined each of those areas? And it was an interesting practice, and it it correlated with something I had also done maybe a year previous to that, which was to do something similar with all the relationships, the significant other relationships I'd ever had with women, including my ex-wife, and trying to understand what are the characteristics, what is it that I'm looking for, and what was I looking for in the past. And I actually did this spreadsheet. I can share it with you. It's pretty crazy. Um, I found something like 600 character traits total. Different lists of them online. I alphabetized them, put them all in a big fucking list, and then I went down the list and said, yes, 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 I'm looking for this. I want somebody with this and this and this. And I got it down to about, 50 or 60. And then I'm thinking, wait a second, that's way too many.
Really pared it down.
I know, right? Yeah, as if. And so then I pared it further down, obviously, and I got down to about 15. And I felt like, all right, this is good. And then from that list, I looked at which on this list are characteristics that I think I have, or am I asking somebody to be totally different and better than me, and I'm not willing to make those changes in my own life? And all but one of them was true. One that I was looking for in a partner was cheerful. And I'm not cheerful. Like, I can laugh. I really like to laugh fucking hard, but I'm not cheerful. I'm a moody motherfucker. So it's like, I need somebody like a little bit happy.
Right.
But it was interesting because I looked at this list. I threw this list and some other more detail. I won't go into it, but it's basically I came up with like what is the job of relationship in my life? Like, what do I want out of it? What do I want to put into it? What are the red flags that I will not have in a relationship again? Meaning, I will not be in relationship with someone who cannot share their emotions and feelings with me. I will not be in a relationship with someone who is not emotionally available, like
Mhm.
more or less somebody who's an avoidant attachment type.
Mhm.
And that's not because those people are bad. It's because I'm an anxious attachment type moving toward secure, and anxious and avoidant is like a disaster waiting to happen. So and I can give you a podcast worth of material just on that. But basically, I learned all these things. And what was interesting is they really applied to work as well. And I realized in so much of the work in different times when I was frustrated is when I was doing a greater proportion of management than creating. So I need to have a role where I'm doing more creating than management, or I'm very unhappy. And I'm good enough at management that I can do it. But when I start to really, like, my creation bucket gets really low, I get very unhappy. And then I discovered some things like when the degree of complexity in my management gets big, or higher, more complex, then I get more and more stressed and more unhappy. So if there are 6 projects and each of those projects has 3 people working on them, and I have to manage and maintain quality across all of those, that's too much. If we have 3 projects, but the same 3 or 4 people are working on them, no problem. Especially if I'm creating a lot in those projects. So things like that. And then finally, I landed on this phrase that defines what I do now, which is I design relationship between people and organizations that drive human positive impact.
I love that.
And that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it's about designing relationship. Do I design interfaces? Sometimes. Do I design marketing language? Sometimes. Do I design brands? Sometimes. What do all those things have to do in common? I'm designing relationship. I love the relationship between a business or an organization that does something, has something, a service, whatever. And when a consumer, right, a person has a need for that service or organization or whatever it is, that there's a connection, a value exchange, and it doesn't have to always be economic. But sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But it's just, that's exciting to me. And then when those things are driving human positive impact, I don't have a problem with organizations or companies that don't at all. But I want to focus my energy, my time on the ones that do. And so to wrap it up, is where I've been heading in the last 3 months is I'm starting a new agency. I sunset my agency, Fathom and Draft. And I'm starting a new agency called Bunsen with my partner and one of my best friends, Michael Polanski. And he's really dialed in on biotech and life sciences. He's just really well connected in that space. He is currently, I think his official title is director or CEO of the Parker Institute for Cancer Immunotherapy. And so that's Sean Parker's Cancer Institute. And he runs a lot of biotech and life sciences companies himself. And these are companies that are doing next level, unbelievable things to help change and improve the human experience at a health benefit level. There was another company that we did some work for called Aether, and they are mapping the enzyme space. So enzymes create, plastics like on our headphones, but they also are part of the material that makes like inside Petri dishes, like that, the matter, the material, the medium of those is a special recipe. Well, we only know something like 1/100,000th of all available enzyme combinations. We just haven't had the time or the technology to discover all those. So they're using robotics and machine learning to model all those out, to basically index all those possibilities so that they become the Google of all the enzyme possibilities. Think about what could be invented, the kind of organisms or microorganisms or like, chemical combinations really that can work together to, create things that really improve human experience. So it's just stuff like this just gets me all kind of amped up these days. And I realized I just didn't want to work on any more like social apps or like stuff that wasn't like actually doing that. Um, anyway, so
That's really
that's what I'm
cool.
all in.
Yeah, I love that. I had seen, I think your post on that, and I remember that phrase, "a human positive change," and I was kind of curious what that was looking like, and that's really cool, man. There's so much when it comes to medical tech, biotech. Like it's a world that I don't know that much about, but there's so much there to improve people's lives, extend people's lives. I mean, would you consider yourself a techno optimist? Because there's there's a
That's a
lot of
good question.
yeah.
I'm right now. I'm in the middle of Ready Player Two,
Mhm.
which is it just came out this last weekend, I think, and it's it's so far it's pretty dark, pretty heavy. Seeing where things are getting, and I have a suspicion it's going to get heavier through the book. Um, and I've read some interesting science fiction around philosophical things. Like there's a great book called The Truth Machine that is predicated on this idea of people being able to have like a wearable that could essentially let you know if the person who's speaking to you is speaking truthfully or not.
Mm,
And if everybody has this device, imagine the net effect.
right.
Um, and so, I think about that and I think about like what's going on. I guess I wouldn't really consider myself an optimist or a pessimist. I tend to think in terms of um, looking at us as organisms. So I used to belong to the Christian faith, and that uh, I was excommunicated from my church uh, during the divorce, not for any kind of infidelity, but I was a very selfish person in my alcoholism, and I think that was sort of their what they were doing. And in that process, I evolved as a human being. For me, this is evolution for me. I'm not saying that if people evolve, they will move away from faith. That's not what I'm saying. Um, but for me, I evolved into a place of really understanding people operating out of their programming. And that includes everybody from Trump and Biden and Obama and me and you and the trolls on the internet and whatever else, right? Like we're all operating out of programming. So from my perspective, one of the most helpful things that I can do to give a little more chance to the human race, and who knows if that's if that is actually effective or not, but is to talk about this and work through this with others, help people through their trauma experiences, help people heal, help people grow, help people in some of their personal evolution, and work on some of these effects that that are moving our health and our wellness in our species forward, and the possibility for invention. I mean, that said, to answer your question, like when I think about Elon Musk wanting to put, devices that attach to our brains, that's like essentially what's happening in Ready Player Two. And this, Ready Player Two is describing kind of what I imagine will happen, which is,
Right.
if we can be addicted to something as simple as, uh, you know, um, something like alcohol for one, or relationship, people being addicted to like the feeling of relationship, the excitement of relationship, um, substances, but also our brain is really wired to connect with that dopamine experience. If that's the case, then a lot of technology amplifies that,
Yeah.
right? Um, One of the things that came up in Ready Player Two that really connected with me this weekend when I was running and listening to it was this idea of the social space. Like we were talking about Twitter, and I'm on Twitter, and but recently I got off of Instagram, and I haven't been on Facebook for a long time. But it's this idea that like I'm actually trying just to spend whatever energy I would have spent on any of those platforms with my much smaller circle. And thinking about that, I have a limited amount of energy, limited amount of time, that my whatever resources are at my disposal, they're limited. And so how can I conserve those so that the potency is greatest for the people that matter most to me, for my children, for my girlfriend, even for my ex-wife, the kids, mom. I want to make sure that I'm being a good co-parent
Yeah.
for my parents, my sister, and then and my my close friend circle.
Yeah.
And how can I tie into those? So if I'm trolling Instagram and posting to Instagram and worried about how many likes I got or whatever the fuck, then I'm wasting a lot of really valuable resources.
Yeah.
Now, that said, I've been addicted to that throughout my life at different times. So I'm not saying it's not pleasurable or that it doesn't feel good or isn't valuable.
Mm.
Some people like me are much more easily addicted.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. That's a long-winded, way to talk
Long-winded,
about
I'm
it.
not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's messy.
it's funny. I think I maybe would say I'm more techno optimist, but there are a lot of things that seem. I mean, Neuralink seems a little scary.
Right.
I think that though a lot of the fiction that we see in movies and books and things like that is geared towards these negative, scary ideas because those are so much more interesting and so much more captivating. And I think that as simplistic as it sounds, I think a lot of times those fictional narratives they kind of creep into reality, and sometimes life
Sure.
imitates art and stuff like that. And sometimes
Yeah.
we have expectations around all of those negative images and ideas we've gotten from fiction. But when you're looking at like what you're saying about people mapping the enzyme space, and even with Neuralink, I think it can solve a lot of neurodegenerative diseases. It can help people see better. It can like there's so many just
Exactly.
black and white things that it can do to improve health and things like that. That if you're kind of optimistic, it's like, hey, that's pretty cool.
I
You know?
agree. Yeah. Wherever we go, there we are, right? Like the humans, the thing that I probably am the most optimistic about is as the human experience at this point, and who knows, environmentally, we may kill ourselves before we are able to really evolve. But we're in a period where more humans than ever before are experiencing some level of abundance. Now, even the most poor in the United States are still, within this abundance space. They generally have access to technology, wellness programs, food, shelter. It's, in the United States, generally speaking, your only limitation to not getting into shelter is if you're choosing your addiction over a shelter. Like there are, requirements to get into shelters and things like that. And by choosing, I say that lightly. A lot of people don't have a choice. They're beyond, that sort of capacity. From my own experience, I would say that. So, but there's just there's so much possibility. Um, if we look at what humans are capable of in this abundance, we start asking more questions like, how can I be empathetic? How can I take care of other people? How can I serve my community? As that kind of evolution is happening more and more, I think there is more opportunity for us to be a little more, tech wise, maybe is a way to think about it. Um, but there's a great book by let's see, what's his name? I'm going to forget his name, but the book is The Body Keeps the Score. And man, just really rocked my world. And what it talks about is the narrative of trauma getting stored in our in our body, because our neural system is all throughout our entire body, not just in our head, right? Like all those nerve endings and cells and so on and so forth go throughout our entire body. And there's a memory of a trauma. Like a lot of times, if we experience a certain kind of trauma, it can get stored in a certain part of our body and then triggered through that. Well, he ends up going through in the book describing from his perspective and his long experience in this, that trauma is essentially at the core of, he believes, the majority of human disease, like cancers and heart disease and liver disease and internal organ failures, and essentially related to unprocessed trauma. And then he talks about the relationship of things like child abuse and homelessness and mental illness. And like, you think about the economic toll of all those things on our economies. If we begin to work on healing those things, helping young people process those things earlier, the economic outcome could be really powerful,
Yeah.
and we could spend more of that money on other things. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think if there's a possibility, then that's where my money's going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I sometimes think about just little things like when I see my kids getting anxious or something, and I go like, "Uh-oh, I think I see my anxiety
Yeah.
bleeding into them," and I go, "Damn it," and I wish. And then sometimes you want to try to just stop it, like, "Hey, stop biting your nails," and then you realize like you can't really just stop it like that. You have
Right.
to figure out what the deeper thing is, and try to give your kids the tools to work through it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
when it comes to
I
like,
know
oh yeah,
with my kids, the biggest thing that I've tried to do, and I don't know that this is right, but it's what I try and do, is I know, because of my PTSD, because of the things that I went through as a kid, knowing my parents were doing the best they could, but they had some really egregious failures. It was really rough when I was a kid. And because of that, I have some characteristics that are tough. I can get angry fast if the volume in the house is loud, and I can, like, my PTSD kicks in, and I'm like, my top is blown. Now that's gotten a lot better, and I've learned to be able to say things like, "Hey, can you all take the volume outside?" or "Hey, I'm going for a walk," or whatever. But I know that I'm kind of a bear. And so with my kids, a couple of things. I've let them know, "Hey, Papa's a bear." And so I just yelled at you, and that was about me, right? That was not about you. Um, are you all still valuable? Yes. Are you all still fantastic kids? Yes. Is this something Papa's going to keep working on? Yes. Is it likely to change massively? No. Like, we just kind of go through the list. And then I just try and spend a lot of time with my kids, even if it's not fantastic, perfect time, whatever. Just if I can spend a lot of time with them, I know they're going to have to go to counseling, but I'm just trying to spend as much quality time with them. Or sorry, I mean, I say quality, but even quantity. I've heard somebody once say quantity trumps quality, because quality is going to happen in there at some point, but actually, trying to have that quantity time is the bigger ask. It's harder, but I think over the long haul, it's better.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think you're doing the right thing, man.
Trying, doing what I can. Um, when it comes to like Twitter and stuff, it's funny. I find myself going through phases where like just about a month ago, it was perfect. I had my feed was dialed in. Every time I
Hmm.
sat down, I had kind of a routine for it, and it would be great. It would be engaging. I'd feel like I was learning stuff and da 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 da. And then like I don't know what happened, but a week or so later, it's like every time I'm in there, it's making me feel, I don't know, like stressed or comparison
Interesting.
or whatever. And it's like I'm getting like almost zero joy out of it, kind of a thing. And
Right.
it kind of, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's a phase or what it is, but I think
Hmm.
it's just it kind of it waxes and wanes, you know.
Yeah, I can relate to that. What are you doing about it? What's your kind of hypothesis about where to go from here?
I think sometimes I think it's a state of mind thing, like
Mm,
blocking out certain periods of time of the day where I get in there and I'm looking to absorb information and learn things and connect with interesting people. I think when it's too much of the day, then you get into this just mindless scrolling. So I think that's part of it, and then um, you know, tuning the feed so that it's things that I find myself engaging with. Um, I feel like I'm feeling a lot of like jealousy lately, which is I don't even like
mm.
saying it's so stupid, but
I really understand that.
yeah, like I see somebody posting their numbers and something so successful, and I'm like, instead of being inspired by that, I find myself, feeling jealous or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I've been, and then I've been spending a lot of time doing physical activity, the gym, hiking, stuff
Hmm.
like that, which has been good. Unplugging more, and I'll listen to audio a lot, when I'm doing
Mm.
that, and that'll be good. But I think everybody kind of has to find that healthy relationship with social media, and it's like it's a tricky thing to find. Um, Really good emails. So this is this is the sort of curation of emails that you've created, which is really neat. How did you get the idea for that originally?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. Probably about 9 or 10 years ago now, I started a site called Pattern Tap, and I was screenshotting headers and navigation and lists and articles and the way that people were more or less laying out components. We didn't call them that at that time, but I was interested in how people were solving common problems, with design. And it was like kind of a blend of UX and visual design. And so I, pulled that together. I spent a bunch of money on it. And this was before SaaS was like really, running, and we had a lot of good patterns for that. And, but I had a lot of activity on it, and I was able to sell about $1,000 a month in advertising for that at the time. And I thought, man, this is great. Okay. And I eventually was able to sell it for about $25,000. And I was like, okay, that sucks. Like I wish it could have been a lot more. And I spent so much time and energy and so on and so forth. And so, it was a lesson learned. Well, fast forward, I go and I join three different VC backed startups. And consistently, I'm championing email. We're trying to connect with our customers. Why is email getting outsourced to a marketing company that doesn't know anything about our product? That doesn't make any sense.
Mm.
So bringing that in house, trying to take care of it, trying to think through it, and always Googling, best welcome email, best onboarding email, best whatever email. And I didn't know all the terminology, but it was hard to find, and you could find stuff on Pinterest and so on and so forth, but it was scattered all over the place. And I thought, wait a second, I've already done this. I know how to create a curated space. So I did it in a weekend. I got about 20 different emails that I thought were like best in class. Grabbed this URL that I thought was pretty great. And I wrote my buddy Mark Christina at MailChimp, and I said, hey, they got this cool thing. You guys want to sponsor this? And he wrote back with a GIF from Jerry Maguire, and it just said, "You had me at hello."
Nice.
I thought, all right, that's
Classy.
tight.
Yeah.
So, fast forward, I was able to create that, in a weekend. Versus previously, there wasn't software to do that, right? So, WordPress and themes made that, easy to do. So it's been almost 6 years now. that we've been doing really good emails. And I added people along the way. We started our own email newsletter. We now have close to 5,000, curated best in class emails that we found from all kinds of different companies and organizations. And you can see the code on them and you can collect them and so on and so forth. And that's been great. It's still a side thing for everybody. So we all have full-time jobs, and we all currently take $500 a month from it as a way of making it like, this doesn't help at all, but it also doesn't hurt, so maybe I'll spend that money on, my hobby or whatever. But we're making more than that, but we keep pouring it back into the product. And most recently, we've really pushed hard. And behind the scenes, you don't see it, but we're working on our first SaaS offering.
Nice.
Our hypothesis is that the biggest friction in the email world, in terms of being able to create new emails, maybe not the biggest friction, a big friction is the inability to actually work with the EML format. Something gets sent out into your email, and the only way to really extract it out of there currently is to take a screenshot of it, and then talk about it. And if that's somebody else's email, you can do that. But again, super taxing, like really laborious to do that. Or your own email, like your company's email. And so like we did my design agency, we did a email design system for a big company called TrueCar not long ago. And, they sent us a big brief about all the emails they wanted redesigned. Well, how did they do that? Screenshots from their inbox.
Right.
Like, this is 2020. How is that? What? That's so silly. How is that happening? So because of our own processes internally, we've developed tech of just grabbing an email and then spitting it out and adding data to it and the code that you can see and all that stuff. So it just made sense for us to start utilizing that tech. And so you're seeing more companies do some of what we're doing is, the ability to comment on a live web page. You're seeing companies like Pastel come up with that. Well, we're doing that for email. So around the corner is the ability to grab an email out of your inbox, and you and your team or you and your client or whatever are able to comment on not just, yeah, I like this, but I like this header. I like what they've done with icons here. Or, hey, this is the wrong copy that we put in here. This should have been updated. Please fix this. Those kinds of things, where currently that's not possible. It's hidden away in an inbox. And the only thing somebody can do is to say, hey, second paragraph in that other section near the purple thing, make this change.
Right.
That's not helpful. And, InVision and other tools like that have helped us get the framework of thinking. And now, of course, Figma has explored all that. And so that's where we're heading. And we think that's a good pass. And, similar to you with what you're saying about Twitter, I look at other people who've started SaaS companies, and I think we solved the problem backwards. We have a huge audience, and people know our name like it's a family name, and we don't have anything to sell to them. It's like most people come up with something to sell, and then they've got to do all their marketing to get people in the door.
Yeah.
So, I think we're probably 3 months away. I bet we'll be able to launch something in February. But it's hard, we've got 5 people now on the core team, but again, we're all, part-time.
Yeah.
So doing that and figuring that out has been really challenging. But, in an ideal world, I will have a nice recurring monthly check or a big sale oriented check in in 5 years or something like that. That'd be a good retirement plan. I don't know. We'll see.
That's really cool. I was kind of curious what the monetization model was for the site, and I love that idea. I mean, I'm not too familiar with the space and all the different tools out there, but I think you're right that it's all screenshots, and
Right.
that makes all the sense in the world to give people the ability to work more directly with the underlying format of the emails. Um,
I think so.
yeah,
Hope so.
yeah.
We'll see.
So it's Cyber Monday. What are when it comes to maybe e-commerce specific emails, what are some things that either maybe some interesting emails that you saw that are top of mind, things that e-commerce stores can maybe do a little differently, a little better, or maybe really horrendous emails that you saw, and
Nice. Nice.
any of the above.
Yeah, it's a good question. So one of the things that I think that I champion a lot in the talks that I give is to be in relationship with your customers. That email is relationship designed, and so your relationship, just as we talk about a significant other or our kids or whatever, if we hammer our relationships with the kind of information, with the kind of non-personal type of touch that we often see in emails, we will lose those relationships. And there's no wonder we have such a high unsubscribe rate, throughout e-commerce, because people aren't relating to people in any kind of personal way. And personal is not saying, hey Matthew, it's here's your generic information. Like putting, just a name tag. That's not personalization. Personalization is I've expressed some interest in, let's say, I'm trying to think of a topic like cameras, camera gear. But I'm interested in Canon. That's my family of products. That's what I'm after. Whereas like B&H, if all they sent me, and in fact B&H is not, they don't do this very well. Um, they could, instead of sending me deals for Nikon and Sony and everything else, they could really start to focus in on Canon. And then also they have an opportunity to try and show Canon, we have this many users who are really focused on Canon. Can we offer them something unique and specific? Even if that kind of specificity is, an hour-long webinar with a Canon photographer who's really well known, right? Like that'd be a free thing, but it would like really be good for the brand of Canon, right?
Yep.
So there's so much more that you can do when you start to get more personal. And like for my girlfriend, I don't ask my girlfriend, like, do you want to go to Waffle House? Why? Because we're foodies, and I know that about her, and she wants to eat somewhere, delicious. I don't I don't ask her why she's wearing, 25 layers of clothing at night, because I know that she's fucking cold like all the time. You know what I mean? And so it's like, okay, I know that, instead of having to ask, well, in your emails, being able to be more personal in your messaging because you've segmented your user group into places where you can actually communicate with them.
Mhm.
In the simplest versions of that are not hard. And your ESP should be able to show you how to do that. So some examples that I saw, that I think are doing well. I'm always a big fan of Tattly, which is Swiss Miss's product of, temporary tattoos. None of mine are, but it's a fun kind of thing for her to bring to the space. And they theme everything. So the emails are very flexible. The design system is very flexible so that they can make colors and change the photography and do some stuff there that's really nice. On a personalization side, I honestly think that Amazon has gotten a little bit better about some of this and following up with, details about my experience and things like that. Trying to think of the brands that are sticking out. For me, I've noticed Everlane is a good one where their emails are almost entirely images, and that's bad. I'm not a fan. We need to move the web forward, not backward. But they clearly track what I'm into, not just abandoned cart type of emails, but they're noticing the colors that I'm into and the style treatments
Mhm.
and the fact that I'm interested in men's clothing and I haven't been shopping for women's clothing. That's pretty interesting. Another group, man, what is the name of that group? Thread.com, I think it is. They do some really interesting stuff where the transactional emails you get from Thread are really impressive and very much based on how I shop, how I work. But one of the big things on Black Friday, Cyber Monday that I'm particularly interested in is I joked on Twitter about this, but I said, "Oh, look, it's unsubscribe week."
Oh yeah, I
You
saw
know,
that.
I probably unsubscribed to 25 different companies who I had forgotten that I was following.
Right.
Um, if they had sent me an email that was not a Black Friday or Cyber Monday email, like prior to, and said, "Hey, you originally signed up at this date for these reasons. We'd love to have you on board. Are you interested in seeing our Black Friday deals, or you want to opt out of our Black Friday deals?" And so, in other words, you might be able to keep them as a subscriber, but just have them opt out of Black Friday because people get, it's like if people are constantly calling you, you're going to turn your phone off.
Yeah.
Right. And so it may not even be about your brand. People may just be like, "I'm fucking tired of this."
Yeah.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah.
So I've heard it described that you should, ahead of the curve, ask people, "Are you interested in deals on Black Friday?"
Yeah.
And most people are going to say yes. A
Yeah.
lot of people want to see those sales, but if not, give them options. And that's relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like that's asking people for what they need.
Yeah. That's a smart idea. I'm one of these guys, like I just the least amount of time possible I can spend in my inbox, the better.
Yeah.
So it's like if it's work related, okay, let me handle it. If not, let me get it out of the way.
Yep.
Do you have do promotional emails and things like that go into a separate tab for you that you deal with? They just go into your main inbox.
Yeah, but I'm in a unique boat. Like I save a lot of these, right? So if they come in and they're not well designed, boop, unsubscribe. I'm done. But I subscribe to so many fucking brands and things. It's crazy. But I, I I'll get them in and I process through them. So from my perspective, a good promotional email, one needs to do the job somebody hired it to do, right? So you should know what that is. If the email, for instance, like if I'm subscribed to a Substack email, I'm there for like really fantastic content. I'm not there for some kind of ad.
Yeah.
So on a Substack email, give me the full thing, right? Like I've subscribed because you're going to give me some kind of valuable information. But on most promotional emails, it's to me, it's like um, a really condensed, short, focused landing page in my inbox. It has a very specific kind of 1.5 job to do, meaning one major thing, and in that last half, it can show like 3 minor things and then be out. And if it's trying to do so much more, it's probably taxing people. You might get away with that for a while, but ultimately people will not engage and it becomes really useless. And so what you're really wanting to do is make sure that every email is doing a job, and and you're wanting to check in on that and see with your customers, is this the value you were looking for? And if it's not, find out if you can change it to make it more valuable. Your open rates will increase, sales will increase, etc. It's not about just hitting people with as many emails as you can. It's about, the right cadence and then the proper content. So,
I feel like one thing that might be interesting, and maybe it already exists, and it might be one of those things that's hard to do efficiently, is if I'm an e-commerce brand and I want to quickly allow a team that specializes in email to kind of audit the emails I've sent. from the perspective of going in, looking at the numbers, looking at the design, thinking through the experience, thinking through the pacing. Are there certain like productized services out there that somebody can go just boom, give you access to my system? You can come in, you can tweak things, you can maybe redesign the whole set of emails all in one go, like really efficiently. Is there anything like that out there?
Nope.
Really good emails.
There should be.
That's
There should be.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of different product ideas, and in the email space in particular, and um, there are no modern email platforms that I think that are truly like cutting edge SaaS, meaning like best in class about how SaaS could operate and how email could move and be. There are some good products out there. There are products like Taxi for email, I'm a big fan of, where you can create a design system and move the components around, and then you export it and put it into your ESP. But there are no ESPs that do that really, really well. Um, and for what you're talking about, there are agencies that can help you, move through that. Honestly, there aren't enough.
Mhm.
It's really difficult to find an email agency that, like, there are some good strategists and freelancers out there, and some agencies that are good. There are some big agencies that work on big, international and national brands that are quite good. Very few of any of those people also have design capabilities that I think are what I would call really good.
Yeah.
Um, what you and I and product world would think, oh yeah, like that's good product design. Like, to me, email is product. Even the marketing side, it's it has marketing content, marketing language,
Yeah.
but it should match the brand. And I think of e-commerce as product, not as something else.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting space. There's a lot that can be improved. I also have thought somebody could make a lot of money coming up with a template series that was 20 emails with 40 components that could be interchanged. And the content for an e-commerce, like for your typical, you know, 1 million to 5 million e-commerce shop, right? What is the type of content that should be in here? Just change your brand name, change the language a little bit, but essentially it's already written and like flushed out for you. That would kill it.
Yeah.
I think somebody would do really well at that.
Yeah.
Like, if I had a little more time, I would do some stuff in that category,
Yeah.
but
But I think the
gotta
idea that
focus.
you have is I think that is perfect. Like I think that makes the most sense. It feels like it sits really well within the existing kind of framework and audience you have, and it's more unique than just, hey, we're going to help you with your emails. I think that's a pretty neat product.
Thanks. I think so. We want to help people make really good emails, right? We want to educate them through showing them what else is out there and the visuals and the code. We want to educate them through tutorials and case studies and articles, um, and curate those from other people within the community as well, not just us. And then we want to give them tools to enable better collaboration to succeed at email. And right now, one of the biggest pieces of friction is the ability to QA, either other people's emails or your own
Yeah.
in a collaborative way.
Yeah.
But like in the design world, that that is so fundamental. It's like basic building blocks,
Yeah.
but in the email world, it doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
so we feel like it's a good service, and it's very affordable. We're going to be charging but like $9 a month per creator.
Nice.
So
Yeah, like
really
if
accessible
I
pricing.
yeah, like I'm like if I'm in my Gmail and I see one of the company emails come in, and I
Exactly.
want to go, oh, let me change. We need to tweak this copy, and by the way, we need to run it through this person to get approval. But I want to draft something for them to see, and then they can quickly make it like that. you can't do that. I mean, you got to forward
No.
the email and
So imagine being in your Gmail, you click, it's a Chrome extension, boop, capture. It pops it up into, a view. I don't know if you use Loom, but it's like essentially like Loom, right? You immediately have a page and you just add your comment with a marker, little like location type of marker. You add in your comment and then you can share that on Slack, or you can invite people specifically by email,
that's great.
and and if you invite them by email, then they'll get notifications and so on and so forth as
Mm.
well. So, as like somebody who owns the email on a product, or somebody who owns email on an e-commerce shop, you know, we just think that's going to be the place. Now, if you want to start collecting those as a team, everybody on your team will need to have an account in order to share a folder,
Right.
right? So, but that's easy, right? You've got probably no more than 3 or 4 people per team that need access to that.
Yeah.
So, maybe you're paying $36 a month for something like that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we're excited about on an enterprise level, we haven't come up with the tech for this yet, but it's around the corner, is being able to subscribe an email to to really good emails. So in other words, you have your shop and you're going to have automated emails that are personalized. And there's so many varieties there that if you're running a big shop, there are emails that are going out that you don't even know what content goes in them, because it's all dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard to figure out to make sure all those look the way you want.
Right.
Because a lot of ESPs won't allow you to send a test of like 20 different permutations of a dynamic email.
Right.
They'll only let you send one. And you're like, well,
Which
there are
one
so
do
many
I
others.
send?
What about those?
Yeah.
And you could do one by one. It was super taxing to do that. And then again, same thing. You see the email, but you can't like share it with your team without screenshotting it, right?
Right.
So imagine if you could subscribe, Joe 1234, plus capture at really good emails, or whatever that is, to your product. And then you go through and you buy things and you take actions and you get that particular user to like have, it's a persona within your system. And then you just start seeing the emails come into your really good emails account. And like, you can start tracking like how things are happening. You can look at the timestamp. You can, start to really comment on them, see where there might be problems.
Yeah.
Nothing is, I don't know why ESPs don't do this already.
Crazy.
And then the next thing we're hoping is to start making relationships. We already have great relationships with a lot of ESPs, and to have it within your ESP. So send this email from your ESP to really good emails.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good track. We've done a lot of usability, or not really usability testing, more like market fit interviews, and we think there's something here. So
That's
looking
awesome.
forward to going after it.
Yeah, I mean, great. There's just some great distribution opportunities there as well, like you're saying with the ESPs. So I love that idea. Do you like I noticed, you mentioned like B&H is maybe not doing some things ideally in how they're doing emails, and you must, with the volume of emails that you post and kind of critique, you must have to sort of navigate those relationships with some of these brands and companies. If you're critiquing an email,
Yeah.
does that get tricky? How have you learned to kind of navigate that?
It can. For a while on our Feedback Friday video series, we would critique people's emails, kind of like, hey, this is why this email isn't good, and we just felt like that was bringing negativity to the space and was not what we wanted. We want to be really positive people. And so we started finding what we felt were the best in class emails, and then talking about 85% of the great stuff, and then a couple of things that they could improve on. And so far that's been awesome. Most people that get on Feedback Friday, or even that have their emails show up on really good emails, are so psyched. Like, we're pretty picky. There's if it were up to me, we'd probably only have about 1,200 emails on the site because I'm way too picky. But I think you look at some emails and you have to remember that not everybody's looking at this from a design perspective. They're looking at it from a, like, is it doing a job perspective? And some emails are doing a really good job at like the content and the strategy and serving the customer, but the design is kind of lacking or just sort of ho hum.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we'll let those in.
Yeah.
So it's just you have to kind of know what you're looking for. But what's cool is when people find emails they like on really good emails, they can just say view code and then go grab that code and make it theirs and change a couple of things and, change the colors, change the logo, change the content. But the layout that was hard to figure out, like, there you go. And that's the internet. That's what makes the internet great.
Yeah.
So
I was curious how you would grab like the EML file from an email, and this might be getting into some of your secret sauce, but if you're in Gmail and I click my extension how does it pull the EML format out?
it's some funky juju. It's like basically it's parsing the email format. There are standard headers and ways of interpreting email language. And so it's taking that out, putting it into a web page on a server, screenshotting it, and putting it into an environment that you can comment on. There are still some interesting bugs. Like, one of the things that's fascinating is not everybody serves their images up with what do you call it? An SSL certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the ESP is not serving their images with an SSL, we'll have broken images on some of the things that we do. So it's like some interesting bugs and challenges that we're trying to work through. It's complicated stuff, but it's doable.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Nice. This is kind of a random question. There might be no good answer to. Copywriting versus design. Do you think that there is more opportunity overall in general to sort of improve the overall quality of emails if you had to pick one through like good copywriting or improving design?
Yeah, it's a great question. The way I would think about it would be this. Unfortunately, they're so tied. It's very difficult to decouple them. But the way I think about it is this: is you have a continuum, a line between like very little visual design to very complex visual design, and then you have kind of crappy, CEO written, copywriting, to like somebody who knows what they're doing, copywriting, both strategically and with good English and interesting voice and tone. And that's a line. Down here, what happens is a lot of people try and get to about the middle point with visual design. But what they do is that visual design it's a lot of it, but not done very well. And so it's pretty hectic. And then they don't do very well on their copywriting either. So it ends up being a pretty shitty email. You can do very little design, visual design. And there are fantastic templates out there that are almost entirely typographic in nature, meaning mostly typography with some very, very simple visual image layouts. And the hierarchy of the text is really clear, right? You have good headings, good large copy to read on your phone and, otherwise. And that's it. Super minimal, simple, get it done. And then you put really good copywriting into that. I think that would win over mediocre copywriting and excellent design. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a little sweet spot hack.
Yeah, most people overdo it, and it's like, no. Spend more time just getting your typography and your hierarchy right, and then really throw down on your copywriting and voice and tone. You'll kill it. I mean, honestly, our own design is like really simple. And there's so many things I would love to change and get better and dial in. But our copywriting is through the roof
Nice.
and people love it and people are obsessed about it.
Yeah.
I wrote an email the other day, just kind of like reminding people, to be kind and loving to each other. I think it was maybe on November 2nd or something like that. And, and, it was the kind of thing that it was just like, it was on brand, right? It was just like, we're just being people. And I was kind of funny about it. And I got so many responses to that. And it just really connected for people, and taking time to do that kind of stuff, people just love it. So that's what I'd recommend.
Do you enjoy writing emails? Do you take some time out of your week or your day to kind of focus on that craft?
I don't write our own emails. Mike on our team does that, and Kelly helps out with it. But my own, when I write emails to friends or clients or whoever, I like doing that.
Yeah.
To me, it's copywriting is something that I really take a lot of joy and pride in.
Mhm.
And even in my designs, I don't use lorem ipsum and never
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe not never, but very rarely. And instead, even if it's not the actual copy that will be used, I try and use copy that will like fit, and it fits an intention, and it just goes so much further. And one of the things I really love to do is to work in little Easter eggs in the copywriting to see if my clients are reading, and that can be a ton of fun. You know what I mean? To tease people a little bit or drop an F-bomb in or something like that, and just see
Yeah.
if people are paying attention. So
I
it's
love it.
fun.
I love it. Well, Matthew, we're a little over our time. Thanks for sticking around and bearing with the technical stuff in the beginning there.
All good. All good.
But it was a lot of fun. Where's the best place for people to find you online?
Oh, dude, I'm really glad I could be here. It was a ton of fun. Um, I am Whale on Twitter. I'm not posting on Instagram much, but you can see my backlog of my photography. Whale on Instagram. I'm Whale on Dribble. Those are the places that count. And you can look for my new agency sometime soon, probably in the new year, under the name Bunsen. So just like the burner.